All right, well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our session, Using Literature to Help Students Connect to the Lives of Service Users in the Context of an Interconnected World. And my name is Yolanda Padilla. I'm a professor at the University of Texas at Austin, Steve Hicks School of Social Work, and I help create pedagogical resources for the Council on Social Work Education through their Center for Diversity and Social and Economic Justice and their Catherine Kendall Institute for International Social Work Education. So I will turn it over to my colleagues so that they can introduce themselves. Nadia?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming today, and thank you, Dr. Padilla. I'm Nadia Kelman, and I'm the editor and curriculum designer for Words Without Borders Campus, a project of Words Without Borders.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming today. My name is Natasha Lafreniere-Sandoval, and I am a PhD student at Steve Hicks School of Social Work, University of Texas at Austin, and I helped Dr. Padilla and Nadia designing this project. Thank you.
Right, so I thought I would start with this slide that I usually use to start my classes on social justice. And so there are things that others can't imagine for you. So the idea behind that thought is that, so that means that you need to imagine them for yourselves. So meaning that while we can get data and information provided to us, those people who give us that information cannot imagine what people are living through for us. And so one powerful way to imagine what people are living through is, and see the world through their eyes in their environments, is through literature. And according to Literature as Exploration by Louise Rosenblatt, which was originally written, the first edition, in 1938, she says that because it allows us to vicariously share in people's lives, struggles, and achievements, literature is a potential means for developing social understanding. Yet, literature has been underused in social work to help students connect to the lives of others, at least in the United States. From a pedagogical perspective, we can interject literature into our teaching in a variety of ways. For example, we can start by helping our students make sense of the issues facing our service users through information, such as data, theory, and analysis. For example, we can give our students data, and this is an example about poverty, showing data that the poverty rate among people of color is twice as that of whites. We can give them a theory that the cause of economic disparities is structural racism. And we can give them an analysis of the characteristics of poverty that result from structural disparities. For example, one characteristic is the prevalence of poor health due to diseases that go untreated as a result of lack of access to healthcare. So we can use this literature. We can use literature, stories, to take those abstract concepts and make them right brain friendly for our students, as shown in this wonderful diagram from the website Child First Publications. I got that from there. So research shows that through literature, students are helped to understand the information better. Okay, a novel or memoir, another piece of literature helps them visualize people within their environments through vivid descriptions and details, which also gives us a sense, definitely, of the emotions that they are going through, and gives us an opportunity to empathize. And there's a lot of research that shows that this actually does happen when researchers compare people who have been given information, like data and theories and analyses, in comparison to when they're given literature that they empathize. The level of empathy is much greater with literature to a really significant extent. And there was a study done. There are all kinds of studies, but one that I thought was very interesting was one done in 27 countries 1 or 2 years ago, where they looked at students and looked at the students who read and students who don't read, and the impact of literature. And there were many all kinds of things that students who read were able to do better, and included, have a better, more empathy, have a less of an issue of connecting with people who they are not familiar with, or experiences are not familiar with, and a sense of agency to do something about issues. So additionally, multimedia sources such as images, videos, and exposure in a variety of ways to social, cultural, geographic, and political context can deepen that understanding. So the Council on Social Work Education, we have teamed up with Words Without Borders Campus to create a teaching resource that uses international literature and a compilation of multimedia resources for use in social work courses. Words Without Borders Campus has a rich, they curate a very rich set of readings from all over the world in translation, and include wonderful teaching resources that Nadia's going to talk about in a second, and like interviews with the authors and a sense of the places where the author or the stories is placed. So we're going to give you a preview of the resource with examples, and you can access the full resource on the website of the Council on Social Work Education, which you can see the web email address on the top right hand corner. And then all the slides shown here that have a star on the top left hand corner are drawn from the website, so you can look at them there in more detail. So first, in terms of kind of navigating the resource, here's an example of the readings that are up on Words Without Borders. And so the theme of the initial set of readings that we have chosen from Words Without Borders is immigration. So this set of readings and their complementary multimedia resources are stories from Iran, Mexico, Russia, Syria, and the United States. And they cover the immigrant journey of a story of an immigrant, displacement, refugee life, and human trafficking. So we are going to be adding more readings and resources on a range of themes such as poverty, family, coming of age, and living in periods of social transformations. So when you click on one of these titles, it takes you to a teaching module that looks like this. And the teaching module contains 2 sets of resources. So the first one, if you click on the title that's in the text box, this is the title of the story, it takes you to the website of Words Without Borders campus, where you will find the reading and a rich set of multimedia resources, as I was saying. And again, Nadia will show you that in more depth. And then in a minute. And then the second part is, which is below it, is called Social Work Teaching and Learning Resources, is where we have added resources that are applicable and that inform social work practice very directly. And basically looking at materials from all over the world that show what social work, and not just what social work, but also more broadly social welfare and other services that are provided for people who are in dealing with the issue that we are concerned at the moment. So Nadia, as she said, she's editor and curriculum designer at Words Without Borders campus. We've been working together for a few months. Is going to start by describing the readings and multimedia resources and more about that website. So I will stop share and open it up.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Padilla, and thanks again, everyone, for coming here today. My name is Nadia Kalman, and I work with Words Without Borders, which publishes literature from all over the world for free online. And we have work ranging from Nobel laureates to more emerging writers, and most of it is modern and contemporary, so very tied into issues that may be relevant to social work education. And what I thought I would do is first go to a specific piece of literature that we can talk about, and then give you a sense of how to look for other literature too. I am definitely not super familiar with Worksup, so I'm hoping we can have a bit of a conversation with you typing, but we'll see how that goes, and I hope you'll bear with me. So the first thing that I'm going to do is take you directly to the homepage of the website. Okay, so over here you can see that we have a banner on top, and that changes. We have 7 now deep country collections, but we also have additional work on our blog if none of those countries are of particular interest to you or your student or your students. And then down here, we have featured themes. We have some themes that are pretty universal, like fathers and leaving home, which deals with the migration and immigration issue that Dr. Padilla raised and that we'll be talking a little bit more about now. And we have also some themes that are less universal, but also very relevant. For example, drug wars in Mexico, revolution in Egypt. Today, what I wanted to show you was a particular piece of literature called A Year Among the Boat People, My People. And this is by an Iranian writer named Amir Ahmadi Aryan. And he immigrated from Iran originally to Australia. And the reason is that he was involved in some protest movements that were then put down. You might have heard of the Green Revolution in Iran about 10 years ago. Anyway, he is highly educated. And so the way he was able to immigrate to Australia is that he applied for a position at a university and he got it, and he immigrated legally. Of course, there are a lot of people who don't have that option. And as he writes in this essay, he probably never would have met his co-patriots from Iran, whether in Tehran or in Australia, where they had gotten by boat and however they could, if he hadn't been sort of strong-armed into teaching a volunteer English class for those students. And so this is about how, although we may share the same culture as other people, we may be separated from them for different reasons. And in this essay, he meets his student refugees who are trying to get by in Australia in a very different way than he is, and he introduces them to us as well. I'm going to very quickly show you what else we have about this literature, because I think it really helps to get the background of a place and know a little bit about the author for students to really understand what's going on. So we define culturally specific terms here in the first tab, about. We tell you a little bit about the author and the translator in their bios. Oh, this is one of the very few works that's just written in English, so there's no translator here, but usually there is. Also, I should say that when we can, we publish in the original language as well as in English. Context here is really important. It gives you some background about what I was saying. These people are from the same culture, the same city, but they're from very different social groups. We always have pronunciations because I feel that makes it much more comfortable to talk about the work if you know how to say the author's name and the different cultural terms. And then here we start talking about refugees in Australia and what life is like for them, and some other context you can look through. Playlist is for further exploration. If students or if you are interested in more from this author, for instance, we have his first novel published in the US. He quotes an author named Henry Miller, so we have information about that, and of course a lot more information about immigration to Australia and the refugee situation around the world. We have also a selection of teaching ideas. Some of these are more literary, but some of them are quite relevant to social work education, as is the first one that you'll see here on this page. And it's entitled Invisible People and Their Stories. And what I'm going to do is, if I were teaching a class, I would probably have student volunteers read this little paragraph about invisibility from the essay. But because of this format, I will just read it to you myself, and also ask that you read it individually to yourselves as you go. And before I start, I just want to give you a few seconds to think about the term invisible and what it might mean to you and how it relates to social work. Okay, so this is what Ariane writes. A part of every society is invisible. Human beings of flesh and blood who live before our eyes, and yet, as Ralph Ellison's protagonist in Invisible Man states, we refuse to see them. We hand them our credit cards at supermarket checkouts, fill our stomachs with vegetables that grow on their farms, wave at them in the street when we need a ride. We encounter them all the time, yet they remain invisible to us. So now I would like to ask you to consider some of the questions that this teaching idea poses for students. And I'm going to go to Works Up in a minute to see if there are any responses in the conversation tab. So the first question is, who are the invisible members of our society? Who is invisible in our society? And I'm very curious because I know we come to this conference from all over the world about who you find is invisible in your particular society. Okay, let me just see. Okay. I don't see anything up in the chat as of yet. I have a feeling that some of you are probably as new to this technology as I am. So let me just go back to the teaching idea here, and I'll just go through the questions, and you can think about them. I hope you will, and think about how they might apply to your particular work. The second one is, how do invisible people become visible? How do they find the agency to become visible? And the third question is, how can we help ensure that all members of our community are seen and heard? And is it the problem that they are not speaking, or is the problem that we are not listening or that we are not seeing? Now, this is just one piece of literature among many others. So in the very last minute of my presentation, I wanted to show you how you might find other literature. So we're going to the Find page now. And these are our 7 deep country collections. Like I said, there's more. There are other countries, dozens of them on the blog. But if we just want to search through the literature from these countries, what you would do is look at some of the filters here. So you can filter by country. I'm not going to right now, but you can definitely do that. All the readings are short. They're an average of like 15 minutes to read, up to maybe 40. And so they're articles, stories, poems, short graphic fiction, and nonfiction. So let's say you wanted to look at nonfiction. Then you could also select from among a variety of themes. So leaving home, migration and immigration, would pull up these selections for you, the first of which is A Year Among the Boat People, My People. Now, there's another very interesting genre called graphic nonfiction that I wanted to briefly show you, because another one of these themes that's not so universally represented in literature but is very interesting is money and possessions in Russia. And if that were of interest to you, you could go to a story called Slaves of Moscow. It's done in a form known as graphic reportage, and it depicts a modern case of slaveholding in one of Russia's biggest cities. And of course, you can always write to me. Dr. Padilla will give out my email at the end if you would like recommendations for literature specific to your class. So thank you for listening, and I will turn it back over to my co-presenters now.
So as you can see, the readings and the multimedia resources on Words Without Borders are very engaging and would be very, very engaging for students. And the connection to social work is quite direct. In the question that Nadia had for us, we can think of invisible people. As far as I'm concerned, as someone who is a social worker and teaches social work, really social work, all the people that we work with are invisible people in terms of not being seen. Interestingly enough, even our activists and people who try to advocate, they part of the issue is that we are not being heard. So very, just incredible connection to social work. So building on that, on those materials from Words Without Borders campus, for each story, we have compiled an additional set of multimedia resources from across the world that have direct applications to social work practice. So these resources inform a range of fields and areas of social work. And what we have done is prepared annotated lists of links to the learning resources, from multiple sources. Like most are from the United Nations and other international organizations, universities, social service organizations directly, and other sources like that. So we organize the lists for each reading by themes, such as those shown here in this image. So people's stories in their own words, promising policies, practice, model programs, and voices of social workers. So we're going to start by showing you a video, which is the first sample resource. It's a short 3-minute video that Natasha is going to tell us about.
Thank you, Dr. Padilla. So in this video, students will witness moments in the life of a Middle Eastern child named Hamza, who lives in a refugee camp with his father as they wait for approval from migration to Germany. Separated from his mother and sister, Hamza endures hardships and anxiously waits to reunite with them. Complementing the literature, this multimedia resource provides social work students a window into the lives of refugees and prepares them to provide support. And Dr. Padilla will help us show the video now. Thank you.
Hamza, Mosul, Iraq. This is my story. I live in many refugee camps in Greece with my family. My mom and sisters are still in Iraq. My dad and I are trying to get to Germany. And then we learn some from my mom and my sister. We are here because just want a better life. In my country, ISIS are killing us. They kill many of our friends. My dad is everything to me. He takes care of me, feeds me, and plays with me. But I miss my mom sometimes. When we came from Iraq, we walked very far. We came by bus, taxi, and then a boat, and then a train. We slept anywhere on the way. Now we have been here waiting for 3 months, waiting for the government to open so we can have a better life. I remain afraid that tomorrow we can go, but nothing happens. I will keep praying every night.
Okay, so I will go back to the PowerPoint. Can you see the PowerPoint? Wonderful. So let me go back to where we were. So that this video and other videos really help the students get a little even closer connected to the stories that they've read, that they've read, and then getting a broader picture, and also it's a resource for social work in that it really informs the an understanding of the lives of people in refugees in camps in this particular video. So other types of multimedia resources that we list include newspaper articles like this one. It's an article from the newspaper The Guardian from a couple of years ago, in which students learn about social workers from around the world coming together to discuss the refugee crisis. And in that newspaper article talks about them coming together and talking about ways they can support refugees through their journeys and on their eventual arrivals in host countries. Reports are also excellent sources as well in terms of, and we include many reports about social work practice. So this one, for example, is based on an ethnographic study, so it's very also story-like, and it provides students an intimate view of how social workers navigate their relationship with the state in the context of ethnic conflict, in the context, in order to be able to continue to support residents, people in their country as well as refugees. This last example of a multimedia resource that we include in our list of resources is a very rich website created by a university, and students can explore personal stories, art, photography, videos, and more on refugee experiences from different parts of the world. And the materials in this website include stories from refugees themselves. And the other thing that students will learn in this website is the types of support received by refugees from local hosts, such as local communities, civil society groups, established refugee communities, and faith-based organizations. So I want to share briefly a step-by-step teaching unit to integrate this literature resource into an existing social work class. So for example, in a direct practice course, in a social work course, you could have students explore the experiences of refugees across the world, and including, depending on what country you're in, including experiences from where they are moving, from where they are coming from, and also definitely their unique socio-political, cultural, geographic contexts, which of course are the kinds of things that we in social work pay a lot of attention to, with the person and environment, as well as the social work approaches that are used to support them in different parts of the world. So things for educators to do. So the educator you would select a course that you would want to integrate this into literature, and design an assignment tailored to the course objectives that fit your course objectives. You would choose either an individual or group format. This lends itself really nicely to a group format, but it can also be done individually. You would pick a set of readings from Words Without Borders campus for the students to choose from. It's a part of the pedagogy in literature is allowing students to select the things they want to read, and then plan one class session. You can have only one class session, or you can have more. And then things for the students that the students would do is they would pick a reading or readings according to their interests. They would explore the teaching and learning resources from Words Without Border campus and the resources from social work that we were talking about. And of course, they would follow whatever your assignment is, but the idea that they're going to reflect on how literature connected them to the lives of refugees, how they felt that they kind of got to know them better. And so for more information, if you would like to contact us and get more information, here is our contact information for Nadia and myself, as well as the links to our websites. And we will be planning in the fall a training, more specific, more direct training that you can find by emailing us or going to the websites. Natasha or Nadia, are there any comments or questions on the? Okay, all right. So we do have 5 minutes. Would you, either one of you, would you like to add something before we close?
I have a question of my own for Dr. Padilla and my friend Natasha. In talking about this literature with social work students, how are their responses different from those of general education students, just literature students?
Oh, so I teach a course called How to Change the World, and it's a social justice course. I don't call it that. And these are actually students from across campus, from many different majors, including more like social work, more human services majors. Their response is incredible. These are students who have, many of them who have never even thought about these things, engineering students and you know, and the class is, I teach it completely by discovery. They really get a sense of the lives of the people that they're reading about. And, you know, their first response is almost always, I had never thought of this. But the empathy is so palpable. And by the end of the course, and again, this is a co-created course, it's very non-directive. Students just write essays and we have conversations. By the end of the course, the students want to be advocates. And I love it because I never tell them, well, you really should be advocates about this. And I have had students throughout the years, I've taught this course for 10 years, that literally have gone into advocacy work. And obviously, I'm not saying the course is the only reason they had this interest, but so it works really, really well. And it's fun for everyone, which I think is a requirement when you're teaching. It should be fun for the professor and for the students. And they read, in my class, they read 3 full books for the semester, but that's all we do in that class. So.
Thank you. I still don't see any additional questions. Please do feel free to submit questions if you like. And of course, you have our email addresses also if you want to send something individually to either one of us. Should we close up the session or?
Yeah, I think so. I guess we would do that just by leaving.
Thank you, everyone, again, so much for coming. And thanks to my co-presenters and the conference organizers and Mart, who gave us some direct support in this session.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.